President of Consumer Energy Alliance, David Holt, coming on the air.
Juan is now going to speak to her guests on the EVOMD phone lines. I'm Tony Thompson. To you, EVO.
Thank you, Tony. David, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me. How are you doing?
Yeah, great. Thanks for being here. You know, you're with Consumer Energy Alliance, and so when we talk about grid reliability and outage prep, you can pretty much cover it for the nation with even describing one area. But I have one question for you before we get started. Now, I know they probably wouldn't have thought of this back, 100 years ago when they were putting up telephone poles and the things that needed to be up in the air so we could get those messages to go through the wires, which still kind of confuses me how it works. But why aren't we putting our infrastructure underground now?
We are increasingly doing that and looking for ways to make all the infrastructure more resilient and adding redundancy even. So a lot of times when you see in certain areas, a street or a highway or something being redone, sometimes you'll see them dig out underneath that street or highway a little bit more. So a lot of in those areas, they are adding maybe some fiber optic cable, some other wiring, electricity, phone cables, other things, in addition to flood control and things like that. So it's being done. It depends on your area, and it depends on some of the strategies around that or costs. But in a lot of areas, it's being done, especially in those high flood areas.
Yeah, and it really needs to happen just because every single storm, we shouldn't have to worry about a pole coming down. You know what I mean?
We really shouldn't, and increasingly we're getting better at that, and when you talk about being resilient and redundant for reliable energy, I think when a storm is coming, a lot of times the utility will have the crews deployed during the storm, so they're ready, so they can try to repair down lines, or if a pole comes down or a tree hits something, they're able to repair them as quickly as they can. But obviously more needs to be done, and we're all living closer and closer to our shores. Millions more people live within 50 miles of the coast around the country now. So when there is a storm, the impacts are greater.
Mm-hmm. And that's what people need to remember. Everybody wants to live by the ocean except me. Get me away from water. Sadly, I live 2 blocks from the river. But I don't want to live anywhere near where there can be a hurricane, because I will deal with tornado threats. I will deal with the, thunderstorms and power outages and stuff like that. But water, that's a whole different ball game.
Wherever you are, respect Mother Nature and, listen to the warnings, heed the warnings, always be prepared. But, the best thing we can all do is prepare for ourselves. Mm-hmm. And if a big storm like a hurricane is coming, or even a tornado or a big rain event, listen to the warnings and take shelter or evacuate if you need to.
Or get out of the way. Yeah, that always confuses me. Like, just even with this latest earthquake and tsunami warning, they had everybody stuck in traffic like the movie ID4, trying to get out of the way, all at the exact same moment. So I think that officials, when they know something like this is happening, they should almost do it like a wedding, where you tap a guy at the table and it's his turn to go up the hill. You know what I mean? It's like when everybody tries to go at once, nobody goes.
Yeah, and thankfully that tsunami was just a warning. It turned out to not be a disaster, and I'm sure there's a lot of lessons learned because, like you, I saw that gridlock, and it certainly worried me.
Yeah, I'd have been on a motorcycle with, the kids piled up like a circus act going up the hill. There's no way.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so with the threat of hurricanes, I mean, there's that threat every year. The oceanic waters go through La Nina and El Nino, and sometimes they're cool, sometimes they're warm. A lot of people are trying to say they're warmer than they've ever been, and they're staying that way, which isn't true. But it's a 10-year cycle, so anybody who wasn't 20 years old 10 years ago doesn't understand that. But when we get cycles of hurricanes, it seems like they do come one right after the other, and it's hard to rebuild before the next one hits. So how do we have grid reliability in an area where this keeps happening?
So a couple of things, and I kind of mentioned these earlier, but there's really 3 R's is what I like to say. You want reliable power, You want resilient power, and you want redundant power. So the first thing is, okay, we have to have reliable power. So what are our policymakers doing to make sure that we have enough natural gas in place? Are we doing enough now to get ahead of the AI data center surge and the new power we're going to need? And I would argue, no, we're not. We need to do more. We need to get ahead of nuclear and advanced nuclear and small modular reactor nuclear so that we have that ready. But natural gas and nuclear really are going to be the future of our power, with a little bit of wind and solar kind of mixed in. So reliable power has to be there. And you have to be resilient in your power. Every utility understands their area, understands the weather events that are likely to occur in their area. So building in that resiliency, also redundancy, so that when an event occurs, you are the best able to withstand that event and restore power or keep power as quickly as we can. Because what Americans now really demand is that reliable, always-on power, even in an extreme weather event. So if something does happen, power does go out, it has to be restored very quickly. So adding in things that withstand wind, that withstand the water, that have backup, redundant power, other systems. You see around the country more and more the utilities are really focusing on that, making sure that their grid can withstand whatever it is that Mother Nature is going to throw at them. Now, Mother Nature if Mother Nature wants to win, Mother Nature wins. So invariably, if an extreme weather event happens, there's going to be power outages. We all understand that. But getting them back online as quickly as they can, that's the key to all this. But it kind of starts with policies with our electric officials, and then making sure that our utilities are doing all they can to meet our needs, our growing needs.
Yeah, there's a job you couldn't make me do, is go out in the storm and work with electricity when it's raining. They are heroes. They're nothing short of heroes.
They're in line with the first responders. It's a different level, but they absolutely are.
Yeah, I agree 100%. All right, so a lot of people, solar has its issues. Make sure they're installed right, or your roof will leak. Then you have a whole different kind of water problem. Wind has its issues. All those things do, but they're offshoots. They're options. But we have so many people who have come into this country illegally, and a lot of people don't like that word, but it's what they are. And they have made the grid just strained because they weren't built to handle this many people all at once. Just like, boom. Case in point, Texas, with what's going on there. So in those types of situations, I don't think the blame game even works when it comes to the power companies, because the grid was built for the population that was expected, not unexpected. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that's true. And I think in recent years we've had some policy decisions that were, frankly, did not reflect an understanding of energy. And were probably made more for political reasons or virtue signaling than for ensuring that we had reliable power and affordable power. And case in point, prematurely shutting down natural gas power plants.
Crazy.
Some areas banned or tried to ban natural gas hookups or connections. Some states in recent years banned nuclear power. What you have to have, wind and solar. They're intermittent power, meaning, if the sun's not shining, the wind's not blowing, they're not working. And battery storage really hasn't been enough that when you can't store enough power from wind and solar for when the weather's not cooperating with them, that you have enough backup power for you through the battery. So really our choices are to ensure that we have reliable power is natural gas, number one, and then getting nuclear online. But that's going to be 5 or 6 years away. So these states, New York, California, we all know which ones, that really restricted energy policies, restricted our energy options, raised prices for their families and businesses, but they've made their power less reliable. So a lot of lessons learned there. We're pleased to see what the Trump administration has done to, really leverage U.S. energy and put that in the forefront of kind of a lot of their policies, because as energy is the lifeblood of this country. It touches all of us every single day in ways large and small. It's probably the one industry that touches us more in more ways than any other. So we got to get that right, and it's good to see this administration and a lot of states and governors are showing they understand energy policy better, and they're doing more about it.
Yeah, because you've got to have it. And as being the president of Consumer Energy Alliance, just the word alliance there between different forms of energy, I think, is key, because you can do whatever you want to have energy at your place, but if you can't afford it, then you don't have any. And I love natural gas. I think it's abundant, it's cheap, and that's what we need to be focusing on, the things that even the poorest of us can afford to do. But when it comes,
absolutely,
when it comes to prep, I don't have a generator, and if I did, I wouldn't know what to do with it. To be honest with you, I'd have to get educated on it if I bought one. But I've got 2 minutes left. What do we do for outage prep as a family, not just a nation?
As a family, the first thing you can do is, as you said, prep. Be prepared. That's the key word. Do you have the supplies you need? Have you gone to the grocery store if you're going to be kind of homebound for a few days? So stock up if you're not evacuating. Make sure all your batteries are fully charged, your phone, your flashlights, other things that you may need during a power outage. Make sure you have plenty of gasoline in your car and you're ready to evacuate. You understand maybe your evacuation route, like you talked about. You don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're in a gridlock. So look for alternative routes in case you need them. Little things like know your neighbors. Make sure you're a good neighbor and you know your neighbors, because in a power outage, one of the things that you rely on the most sometimes are your neighbors and those people that are closest to you in proximity. Look for what happened in the last storm. Were there leaks in your house? Did your backyard flood at an unusual rate? Things that you can prepare and fix before the next storm. So every storm should provide a little bit of a lesson for you, and you adapt as you go. So those are the big things that we as individuals can do. But the biggest one is heed the warnings. If you hear a warning, if you hear a need to evacuate, if you hear a need to get to higher ground or move out of your location, listen to those folks that are giving you those warnings. That's the best thing you can do to preserve life and our health.
Yeah, and try to get there without taking everything in your house, because what you need to do is save your life. Things can be replaced. I know pictures, and the only thing I would grab is like my dad's ashes and a change of clothes, and I'd be out. But some people are trying to pack up their entire house to get out. It's
absolutely right. It's going to be a short-term departure, so you'll be back home fairly soon. So just take your necessities.
Yeah. Where do people go to learn more how to prepare, and what are good ideas for energy reliability, David?
Yeah, so easy. ConsumerEnergyAlliance.org. Get involved. Consumers, voters. We are the ones that are responsible for energy policy. So it doesn't matter if you have an R, a D, or an I next to your political affiliation. Make sure that our elected officials understand energy policy and they're promoting and supporting sensible policies that support reliable, affordable, and clean energy. We want all three, and we can have all three. The keys to reliable for us, from a policy perspective, it starts with our elected officials, local, state, federal. Make sure they understand energy policy. They're not banning, they're not mandating, they're not restricting energy policy or forcing us to choose one energy over another. We as consumers, we as Americans, we want our choice. So that is the first thing that happens to allow our utilities, our folks that are providing our electricity in our communities, to do what they need to do to make sure the grid is maintained, the grid is reliable, redundant, resilient for those inevitable storm events. But also to meet our basic demands. Demand keeps going up. We need more and more power. Power creates jobs. Power is going to be the future for AI, artificial intelligence, and data centers in this country, and that's going to really increase our electricity needs here in the near term. So a lot of stuff goes into it, but But if it starts with sensible policies and our elected officials know how to get out of the way sometimes, that's a good place to be.
Awesome sauce. His name's David Holt, President, Consumer Energy Alliance. Hurricane season is here. We don't usually get the hurricanes, but we dang sure get the remnants, and sometimes they toast up a twister. And we've been hit twice this year, 3 times in our community, just in one season. So we need to be ready for this kind of stuff, too. David, thank you.
Absolutely. Godspeed and be ready.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.